Hi everybody, Arnaldo here broadcasting from Fidelio's Frequency. Welcome to my channel. As you probably noticed from the title of the video, today we won't be talking about records or music, but we'll be talking about the Rega P6 turntable. The reason being is because I recently made a quite significant upgrade to one of the components of my audio system, and I'd like to share my experience with you. About 5 years ago, I already did an upgrade to my turntable. I went from the Audio-Technica entry level, which was kind of like the clone of the Technics 1200 series on a more budget-friendly level, to a Project Debut Carbon Esprit. And I had been very happy for about 4 years with the turntable. No complaints, noticed that I liked it a lot more than the Audio-Technica, until I started buying more audiophile pressings, jazz pressings, pressings that were a bit more dynamic. And I started to notice also on the debut, on the Project Debut Carbon, also that certain limitations in the reproduction of the sound. I always had on both the Audio-Technica and the Carbon and the Debut Carbon mounted a Shure V15 Type 5 MR cartridge, which I was very happy about. And it's a really old vintage cartridge, for which recently I replaced also the stylus. And I've loved that cartridge for 30 plus years, and I had a brand new one that was given to me only about 6-7 years ago. So I was very happy with my cartridge, but I decided that it was time about 8 months ago for another turntable upgrade. And I did some research, actually quite a bit of research, reading articles online about different turntables that I was interested in within the price range that I was willing to spend, and watched a lot of YouTube videos, and also reached out to a lot of vinyl community members who are more into gear and equipment. Also reached out to people who are more gear enthusiasts and audiophile enthusiasts for their opinions on various turntables. And they all said, well, the best thing is to go and listen to them, test them out for yourself. Because every system is different, every ear is different, and tastes are different, even when it comes to audio, and especially when it comes to audio equipment. And that's what I thought I would do. I live in New York City and went to one of the distributors or authorized retailers of Rega, Clear Audio, and a few other turntables that were in my price range, and hoping to be able to demo a few of them. Unfortunately, there were none to be demoed. And reason being, the retailer told me, is that he had a really bad experience with customers having mounted very expensive cartridges on some turntables that obviously were not treated very well and were damaged. So his policy was to no longer have any turntables on the floor to demo, which seemed kind of weird, especially when you're dealing with very high-end equipment. The store is known for very high-end equipment, and I guess their target audience or their clientele is basically people with a lot of money who will go on whatever recommendation is to tell them this is the best equipment that your money can buy. But whatever, I digress, rant over. Let's get to my story and my Rega P6. I finally settled on the turntable that I wanted and decided to purchase it from an online retailer, also because the retailer that I was looking at in New York City did not have it in stock. So I figured it was probably easier to just order it. And I went with Audio Advice, very reputable retailer of many brands, and I was very happy on how quickly they shipped it. Within 2 days, I had my new turntable. So let's cut to the quick unboxing of the turntable and the setup and the assembly of the turntable. I didn't show you the mounting of the cartridge because that took way much longer than actually the setup of the turntable. But yes, I mounted my Shure V15 Type 5 MR, and I was ready to go and listen to music. So I decided to pick out records that I was very familiar with, records or recordings that I had listened to for the past 20, maybe 30 years that I was very familiar with, and records that I had listened on my project turntable. One of the first ones that came to mind was a reference recording, and that would be Steely Dan's Asia. And I picked probably what is now considered the definitive version of Asia, the UHQR by Analog Productions, which came out like 4 or 5 months ago. And the first thing that jumped out to me, and actually more importantly, was the bottom end, the bass. It didn't seem louder or more pronounced, just deeper, like a deeper frequency of the bottom end. That's the main difference that I noticed. And let's face it, this UHQR is an audiophile pressing. It sounded fantastic on my previous turntable. It sounded, I want to say, a little bit better in the frequency, let's call it, of the bottom end, but it didn't blow me out of the water in terms of upgrade. So moving on to the next recording that I wanted to demo, it's probably, I wouldn't consider it reference quality, but for sure it is the best recorded Beatles album, and probably the album, one of the Beatles albums that I have listened to the most, especially recently, and an album that I listened to on many systems, not only on many different turntables. And I'm talking about the Beatles' Abbey Road. And wow, when I played this on the Rega P6, I'm not exaggerating here, I heard things that I had never heard before. I picked up on details that I never picked up before. But more importantly, the soundstage and the presentation of the instruments, of the voice, the whole soundstage was much deeper, and it was different than how I remembered it. I rediscovered things. I actually discovered things that I never heard before and rediscovered the beauty of this record. And this wasn't the only case. I pulled out, after this, some other older recordings that I had. I'm not going to go through them all, and that is the main conclusion for me. Yes, as I picked up on the Asia, the bottom end is much deeper through my Rega P6, but more importantly, the soundstage and the presentation is a lot deeper and a lot more 3D. Enough with the records. I'd like to talk to you about some other issues that I had with the turntable. And this is a little bit more gear or equipment focused. So, first off, and I don't know if you noticed it in the unboxing video, when I pulled out the dust cover, I noticed that it didn't have that protective film that typically plastic dust covers have, and it was well wrapped inside a plastic bag, and it was enclosed with the styrofoam edges, so that like the padding, so that it wouldn't shift within the box. But unfortunately it probably did, and it caused some type of wear where the cover was no longer shiny. You could see this wear on the edges, and I was actually very disappointed because I'm a stickler for taking good care of my dust cover. And I immediately called Audio Advice, and they shipped me out a new one. Unfortunately, they shipped me a clear one versus a smoked one, which goes with the black version of my turntable. The clear one goes for the white version. At the same time, I also had filled out a form through the distributor, which apparently this seems to be a very common issue, that the dust covers are not shipped properly and they tend to get scuffed and to produce some like wear or like scratches on it. And they also shipped me out a dust cover immediately. And this time it was a correct one. It was a smoked one. But let's get, apart from the cosmetic imperfections, let's get to the juice of some of the issues that I had. First off, the cueing lever, which is that little lever that lowers the tone arm onto the record. I noticed that it did not have a lot of clearance, in the sense that it would immediately, as soon as you didn't even have to cue the lever all the way down, that the tone arm was already touching the record. And I noticed from other videos that I saw online, especially the demo videos from Audio Advice, that that wasn't the case, that you could lower the cueing lever and the tone arm would slowly drop. That was one. Second, after about a week, within a week, I started noticing a ticking that would happen as soon as I actually had to analyze where and when the ticking was happening. I actually removed the glass platter and noticed that there was no ticking. As soon as I put the glass platter on, I would hear a ticking that would happen at every round. Of course, not during the music, when no music was playing. Third, I also noticed that the startup, it would have like a squeak. There would be like a little squeak just as soon as it starts up, for about maybe 3 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds, not even 3. I did some research online very quickly, and then I called them because some of the issues are known and others aren't. And I did not want to have a defective turntable right off the bat. They were great in assisting me in troubleshooting the issues. First off, the easy one is the squeaking. Seems to be, and speaking with other people that I know that have the same turntable, it is normal for a Rega P6 that on startup, it has a little bit of a squeak. It's how it is. It's just how it is. And I was told, and I read online that the suggestion is to remove the tiny belt and dip it in some type of talcum powder. But before trying that, I actually wanted to run that by the technician. So I mentioned that first, and they said, yes, it is common, but you can try that. It won't damage the belt. I haven't tried it yet. I guess I'm just dealing with the slight squeak because it seems like everyone is. Second off, when it comes to the cueing lever, he was kind enough to tell me, I'll send you a video link which shows you how to adjust it, and I'll also send you this micro hex key so that you can adjust and fine tune the cueing lever to your desire, to your pleasure. And third, he said, yes, the ticking may go away on its own, but what probably happens is that it needs a little bit of lubrication. So I will send you a syringe. It's very surgical. the oil, and he also sent me a link to the video, with the directions and instructions on how to do this operation. Again, Audio Advice was very quick at shipping these things. Within 2 days, I had the micro hex key, the syringe, and the oil. So I immediately adjusted by looking also at one of the videos, the link that they sent me, and on how to adjust the cueing lever, and I fine-tuned it to my pleasure. All good there. And after watching the video to lubricate the subplatter bearing, I decided that I'd wait off a couple more days because this happened during the week and I wanted to take my time and do it over the weekend. By the time the weekend came around, I also let the turntable spin for maybe about an hour, 2 hours, as the technician had recommended, and suddenly the ticking was gone. I didn't even have to use the lubricating oil for the bearing. So far, so good. It's been maybe 6 weeks that I've had it, and the ticking has not returned. So all good there. Final and most difficult issue to troubleshoot was the hum, or this buzzing sound that I heard and on one channel. And it was actually on the right channel, and the technician told me to separate the power supply unit as far possible from the tone arm and the turntable. So that's what I did. As far as the cable could go, that's where I placed the power supply unit, and I still heard this buzzing sound. I tried to troubleshoot it with other people in forums, people that are a lot well versed on how to solve gear problems, equipment problems. I had the turntable connected through another Rega Phono stage. I unplugged it from there. I plugged it directly into the Fono input of my amplifier, still kept hearing it. I was hearing it also in my headphones, and that's when actually it hit me that it didn't have anything to do with the proximity to the speaker, because the power supply box, as I said, was close to my right channel, even though it was quite far away from the turntable. And I started playing around a bit with how far I could stretch out the power supply unit. And I noticed, as I'm trying to do this with my headphones, as soon as I pick up the box and I move it, the buzzing sound disappears. I put it back on the shelf and let go of the box, and I hear the buzzing sound again. Now I just touch the power supply unit and it also disappears. Lo and behold, like other people told me, my body was grounding the box. So the solution was, after I spoke with the technician and I told him the details about what was happening, he suggested that I run a grounding wire from one of the screws at the back of the power supply unit directly to the ground, the little ground knob or screw behind the amplifier. So I tried doing that with one of the screws. First, I tried the most accessible one, which is the black one in the back, and kind of like in the middle of the box, and that didn't work. Then there are two steel screws that kind of like keep the assembly of the box together, and they're a little harder to unscrew because you have to slide in the spade of the grounding wire. And as soon as I make contact with the steel screw, while the ground wire is plugged into my amplifier, it disappears. So problem, 3 or 4 solved, and I'm a happy camper, and I tighten all of these screws for the grounding wire, and I'm good to go. Kudos to Audio Advice, to their technicians. Their customer service is fantastic. I will say you're better off either chatting directly or sending an email, because their phone customer support doesn't always relay messages in a very quick manner. You're better off just chatting with them online or sending an email. So that was my journey. That was the journey of my purchase of my Rega P6 turntable, and I am very pleased. I'm enjoying listening to records now, like I did before, but with that extra pleasure. I'm really satisfied with my purchase, and it works for me. I'll also leave details of my other audio components so you can get an idea of maybe the compatibility of my turntable with my components, if that could be helpful for anyone else that may have similar components. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I know it's probably a totally different audience that typically watches videos on my channel where I talk about music and vinyl. This one was for the gearheads. Maybe I solved someone else's problem. I hope I did. Feel free to ask further questions if you or experience similar problems to what I've experienced on my Rega P6. I'll be more than happy to share my knowledge, my limited knowledge, and my experience. So I hope to see you guys again on my channel, maybe for some other videos. If you like what you saw and you want to support the channel, click that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. The notification bell will tell you also when I drop new videos. So that kind of wraps it up for today's video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.